Hi, my name is Esper, and I talk about things to a depth nobody asked for. And today, I'm going to be talking about what Kenjaku's plans actually are. And this pains me to say this, but how Naoya is actually the key to understanding what he intends to do with the whole population of Japan. But before we get started, I'd just like to ask you to hit the subscribe button because I'm trying to hit 10K and please help. I don't have a good pitch, but I'll ask you again at the end of the video. So this video was meant to be a chapter 193 video, but it kind of took a life of its own, as you can see from the title. So you might be wondering, in a chapter that doesn't even have dialogue from or show Kenjaku, how did I figure out what Kenjaku intends to do? Well, it starts with this panel and ends with Naoya. Sounds weird? Yeah. I was surprised when I put it together too. There is more to the Culling game that meets the eyes. It is our biggest clue so far, so let's delve into it. The Culling Games is a way of breaking in humanity. Tengen said so himself, but how? The Culling Game arc is one of the most involved and widespread actions that Kenjaku has made. It involves everyone in Japan, save for Hokkaido, they're special. Sorcerers and non-sorcerers alike are involved in this. Whether non-sorcerers are trapped in the Culling Game or ejected from their homes that happen to be within the arenas, or even attacked by cursed spirits that seem to have been unleashed. The Culling Games have been described as breaking in all of Japan, and I think that it's doing this in three ways: trauma, cursed energy generation, and preparing humanity for merging with Tengen, as well as another purpose I'll talk about later in the video. The sudden revelation of the existence of cursed spirits to the general population was a traumatic event, not only in the sense that they are finding out about this decidedly shocking information, but they are also experiencing the trauma of being attacked by the cursed spirits, seeing the destructions of their homes and neighborhoods, being displaced from where they once lived, and seeing their loved ones die or go missing. The sudden collective trauma was widespread. And you know what large-scale trauma produces? A lot of cursed energy. And what does Kenjaku need? Since cursed energy creation is a positive feedback loop, once Kenjaku got the reaction started, it would sustain itself. It's quite simple, actually. Curses create human suffering creates cursed energy, and cursed energy pools and creates more curses. It is a never-ending cycle, especially when you've trapped a lot of the sorcerers who would actually otherwise control this in a deathmatch battle against other ancient sorcerers, and those in the barriers are also collecting cursed energy that go further into fueling cursed energy for the unknown ritual that Kenjaku is performing. I put unknown in quotation marks because by the end of this, you will know what Kenjaku intends to do. So why go through all this trouble for large amounts of cursed energy creation? Well, two reasons. According to Tengen, the cursed energy lost through Uzumaki cannot be regained by the sorcerer, and Kenjaku said it himself. The ability to create what he wants lies beyond what he's capable of creating alone. So he decided to unwittingly recruit all of Japan. What Kenjaku is doing is outsourcing the production of cursed energy. He is spreading wide-scale trauma, harm, and destruction so that he can fill up the massive cursed energy requirement that he has. And the other is one reason we already know of. He is storing up cursed energy to merge humanity with Tengen. And Tengen, oh boy, Tengen is such a key player in this. But the Pandora's box of Tengen is something I hesitantly open because he is such a black hole of information. And because of this, I have so many thoughts about Tengen. I have so many theories, and none of them fully formed because there is simply not enough information. Tengen is so ever present, but yet what do we know about him? Not much. And the things we do know are pretty damning, I would argue. He's got a fan club / cult, and if that's not damning enough on its own, wait until you hear the orders that came from Tengen himself regarding Riko. I motherfucking quote, erase her. Why phrase it that way? The organization that worships Tengen in his purest form ordered a hit on her, which actually kind of aligns with Tengen's command. And while I know this is a particularly small detail, Gege isn't a writer that slips up and makes mistakes in terms of the importance of the minutiae of dialogue. Messing up on math and scientific concepts? Absolutely, all the time. But in terms of writing, we have so many iconic lines in this manga that prove to be important. My one and only, you're a strong kid, so protect others. Yeah, then I guess that makes us accomplices. This manga has beautiful and, more importantly, precise writing. So the fact that they were tasked with the erasure of Riko Amane is ominous for me for so many reasons, because there are so many better ways to phrase that. So what gives? They're not even a part of the ritual of merging with the star plasma vessels themselves, so that isn't even accurate to the brief. Unless they're a part of a bigger ritual. Tengen's whole thing is very suspicious to start off with as well, because here is another clue. He explicitly says, I, Tengen, the six eyes, and the star plasma vessel are all bound by fate. There isn't an explicit delineation on what fate is here, whether it's good, bad, or neutral for them, but based on the events of bringing fate-bound parties together, looks kind of disastrous. And Tengen was instrumental in bringing everyone together. He specifically requested Satoru, the Six Eyes, and Suguru, while Toji could be attributed to this fucked up fate scenario because he is said to break their destinies. That is an assessment from Tengen, who I am not inclined to believe. Since this whole thing is so incredibly suspicious, it's safe for Tengen to reveal his fate ties with Gojo and the star plasma vessel, because one is dead and Gojo is very, very clearly intertwined in all things. Let's just be real. But I would argue that this web of fate encapsulates the Heavenly Restricted, Geto Suguru, and the other two clan technique inheritors. And if that turns out to be the case, then I motherfucking told you so. It looks like Tengen's curse technique is immortality, along with the barrier techniques that he possesses. But isn't it rather suspicious that the technique threatens to move bodies and erase his will so that he has to take over a new compatible body? I have an explanation for that. Are you ready for probably one of the most absurd things I'm about to say on this channel? You're not, but let's go anyway. Curse techniques are just curses who have fostered a parasitic symbiosis with humans who have the capability to house and control them. I'll let that sink in for a second. Believe it or not, and it truly does pain me to say this, Naoya is the most instrumental part of me putting this entire theory together. Naoya's curse transformation gave us valuable insight on the formation of cursed spirits. Since this is the first iteration of this, it's impossible to tell whether or not some of these are unique to Naoya or if it is something that is standard to the human to curse formation pipeline. However, we are able to deduce certain things from the clues that have been left behind throughout the series, and I will break down how the things we have previously seen in Jujutsu Kaisen support the theory that curse techniques are just a symbiosis between humans and cursed spirit. When Naoya's cursed spirit evolves, it gradually becomes less human, only really retaining his ego. This gives us a glimpse into curse formation. This means that sorcerer and curse technique isn't as integrated as we once believed. Curse techniques are just curses imbued with the people who possess some ability to control them, and the ones who don't have the ability to control their curses can't call upon them, and their powers remain dormant if they have the ability to house the curse. I will elaborate on this later, but maybe because the same way that sorcerers bleed into the curse like Naoya has with his personality, maybe the curse bleeds into the sorcerer. These people move about the world differently. Hiruma, for example, so driven to correct the wrongs of the world, even if he has to take it on one case at a time. And this is the same person who immediately rose to a grade 1 sorcerer. Could it be because he is extremely skilled, or could it be that he has nurtured the curse growing inside him for so long that it grew strong? Or is it both? Since this is only the first iteration of us seeing a sorcerer turn into a curse, we don't have a lot to go on. But if you look at these smaller morsels of information that have been left for us, it all of a sudden comes together. Naoya in his first transformation only seems to be part curse and mostly Naoya. He retains a lot of the memories and was coherent enough that he tells Maki about her mother. He even retains the same face, but was taking on a more monstrous physical appearance. But his second evolution sees the creation of something more monstrous and lacks the features that we know and see as something that makes someone more human. He no longer has Naoya's face. Instead, it is just a vague representation of a face. The eyes, the mouth, the nose are all there, but there isn't a human characteristic to it. It's skeletal. The same goes for his body. Naoya's body goes from being organic into something more mechanical, while humanoid, the limbs from his body extend in a way that is much less human or maybe even organic. He honestly, by the end of it all, resembles a jet more than he resembles a human. And this is an important distinction because the organic nature of curses reflects the origins of them from humanity. As Mahito said, he was born of humans. Curses are born of humans. Then it seems like the final form for curses is a hybrid between curse and humanoid. We see this in special grade curses like Jogo, Hanami, and Mahito. It seems to be, though, that the root of the power are the curses and the root of the personalities are humans. And they are catalysts of each other, trapping each other in a loop that is ever perpetuating. Humans release negative energy, which turns into curses. Those curses then cause suffering for humans, and the cycle churns with only the sorcerers to keep the curses from overwhelming humanity. Because if you think about it, there is no balance in the other way. There is nothing that humans can do to eliminate curses. So given an ecosystem without sorcerers, it will always tend toward negativity. And soon, curses will begin inhabiting humans that internalize their negativity to such a degree that they begin to foster their curse. Higuruma and Junpei were specifically pointed out as people who had curse techniques but no ability to control it. They are by far our best example. Kenjaku has explicitly told us when he performed the transfiguration, he adjusted the brains of those who were meant to be non-sorcerers who already have curse techniques. This means that the curse technique was in possession and it's mutually exclusive from the ability to control that curse technique. He never said that he gave them curse techniques, just the ability to control it. He modified their brain to be suited for sorcery. Here is where the second part of this theory comes in. Curse techniques aren't genetic. The way Naoya's curse grew from him seemed more like a takeover rather than a transformation. He slowly became less Naoya and more like a curse. The personality remained largely the same, but the power and the curse itself transformed and grew now that it was free from the constraints of Naoya's body. The point that I need to hit home is the fact that the curse techniques themselves are not genetic. They are completely separate entities hanging out in the bodies of humans till they die or get exorcised. A few things support this theory. It just doesn't work scientifically. I know that's a really broad statement, but it'll get its own paragraph. If you're new here, trust. It will come together. And the old timers already know what I'm about, especially if you've seen the chemistry video. The fact that they are specifically described as those who already have curse techniques, and the fact that Kenjaku can modify people to be able to perform sorcery. And let's not forget the fact that you have to exorcise sorcerers in order for them not to turn into cursed spirits. That's really suspicious. So let's talk about the fact that scientifically, it simply does not make sense that the curse techniques would be genetic. It is so far-fetched that each of them made a whole brand new mutation for their technique, because there are actually very few truly positive mutations that happen, or even mutations that will make a demonstrable difference. There is about one mutation for 15 to 30 million nucleotides, which is about the same likelihood of me getting a Valorant match where someone doesn't drop a slur. So pretty rare. And on top of that, our DNA is actually filled with a lot of non-coding portions. Only 1% of our DNA actually code for proteins, and the rest contain a bunch of stuff you don't need to know about for this video. Yes, this is a shonen manga, but Akutami sensei has always rooted us in reality and science to a degree. There are math and science advisors hired on for this manga. The science advisor hired on for the Kashima versus Hikari fight also worked on Dr. Stone. So there is merit in approaching the problem in this way. Anyway then, how do we explain the various curse techniques that we have? This is where my wild theory comes in. There are two genetic portions to sorcery: the ability to house a cursed spirit and the ability to control said cursed spirit. These are two separate genetic traits in which a person can have one and not the other. And this will be a very, very important distinction later when we talk about Kenjaku's end plans. The ability to house a cursed spirit is what Junpei and Higuruma had. This would explain why people like Junpei and Higuruma are able to have a curse technique without control. Curse techniques are just another manifestation of curses, a symbiosis of human and curse. This would, on a conceptual level, explain how Junpei and Higuruma, through their troubled lives, grew a curse technique within them. And what is Kenjaku doing now? Giving literally everybody a troubled life. He is breaking in Japan. Imagine how much negative emotion has been directed at Junpei and Higuruma, how much they themselves have cultivated it. Junpei from feeling unloved, unwanted, and ultimately lost. Higuruma and his self-inflicted crusade against the law and his disdain for those in power. I would go out on a limb and say that in the event that these two didn't get the ability to control their curse techniques, they would have just become curses in death, which is a bit rarer in humans than it is in sorcerers. The parasitic curse in them would take over in death because there is only one difference between curse and curse user: control. So you might be thinking that normal parasitic infections don't require a genetic component, but I think the specific ability to house them without perishing does. Because if you think back to movie Zero, the kids who were ingested by the monster that Maki and Yuta went to rescue, they were dying from being cursed, and without medical attention from Shoko, they would have died. There has to be some other factor allowing people like Higuruma and Junpei, whether it's genetic, which is what I personally believe, or there is a slow enough progression of negative cursed energy inside a person actually turning into a curse. Like microdosing on bad vibes to inoculate yourself against being poisoned by curses. The fact that Kenjaku can modify their bodies to control curse techniques means that there has to be some sort of bodily factor that allows them to house these curse techniques. And since these humans are also rare, this means it's not an innate ability in all humans. From what we've seen from the Culling game, there are a number of people who have this ability, many of them with unfortunate circumstances, which further supports my theory on people who have negative experiences and therefore an accumulation of cursed energy within themselves, being more predisposed to this development. But there may actually be another simple piece of evidence that is incredibly convincing. This happened extremely early in the anime, and at first I dismissed it as something that was unique to Yuji rather than a facet of the world. But as we learn more and more about this world, the more it seems like this was a rule and not an exception to it. Gojo explains that Yuji will begin to absorb Sukuna's curse technique despite not being born with one. This is an explanation to the so-called rule that Jujutsu sorcerers are either born with a technique or not, which I think is false from what we know of now. It was just hard to discern that because before it wasn't possible for people to gain the ability to control their curse techniques. And if you're thinking about this, your next thought is probably, well, what about clan techniques, Esper? Well, I have an explanation for that, because of course I do. The thing is, all of the three main families seem to originate from a curse. Let's take the Gojo clan, who are descendants of Sugawara no Michizane. Surely people have thought that having your great granddaddy to be a curse is a little bit sus, right? Now, the beginning of this is a little weird, but I imagine this started off familial and remained familial less because of genetics, but rather name and proximity and the influence of fate, which is our chemical X, essentially. To truly understand this, we need to look at Megumi and Yuji as they hold the key to familial inheritance. And you might be thinking, Yuji? The guy who wasn't originally a sorcerer and doesn't have a curse technique and isn't descended from a major clan that we know of? Yes, that Yuji. But first, let's look at the curious case of Megumi Fushiguro's inheritance of the Zenin curse technique. That sounds like a Nancy Drew novel. The Zenin clan technique didn't even appear in the clan members that were immediately within the Zenin clan, but rather in Megumi, who is Toji's son. While biologically Zenin, Toji is such a wild exception in the world that I honestly don't know if I can even quantify him as a carrier of the technique. But you know what he is? Someone fate intertwined. He was a main player in the Recall Manai incident. You could argue he was the one who put forth the events in motion that we see now, or at least one of them, because if you remember, the person who put out a hit on Rika were the worshippers of Tengen. And if you remember, Toji answered that call, and Toji gave Megumi his name, a name that means blessings. And to him, blessings meant curse technique. It could very well be the dark truth that he inadvertently cursed Megumi with the powers of his clan at birth by giving him that name. While clearly wishing for Megumi to be better off than he is, there's a certain vitriol that he had toward his clan and people with cursed energy, and for good reason. They ostracized him. But just because Toji cursed Megumi, that doesn't mean it has to be the clan technique, right? There is a large emphasis though on Toji having a lot of hate and negative feelings directed toward the family that he had and the curse technique of that family. We know he was still bitter about the curse techniques because of the way he died. And because he sold Megumi to the Zenin clan, yes, for money, let's not excuse Toji's god-awful father behavior, but deep down, he was also thinking of how much better life would be for the boy who was blessed with the family's curse technique. Deep down, Toji still had hopes that what he needed for his family to be good to his son is to be blessed with the curse technique that the family wanted so badly. The only thing this could possibly lead to is resentment and pain, cursing Megumi at birth, cursing him with the clan's technique. If you don't quite buy this yet, I'll give you another example because this isn't an isolated incident. Noritoshi Kamo. Which one? Exactly. When my roommate first started reading Jujutsu Kaisen, she asked me, why did Noritoshi's mom name him after literally the most evil Kamo clan member to ever live? I legitimately had no good answer for that. But in this context, it makes sense. Who would be cursed by the name they had in birth if not the person who was given a cursed name to start his life off on? And to take it to the next step, I would argue that even their last name is cursed. But how did it start? Well, let's take a look at Yuji. Now, I don't think the families of old Jujutsu society was just popping petrified body parts of their ancestors like candy. Well, at least I hope not. But there is a way for this curse to be passed on that has been in our faces all along. Remember how Yuji's grandfather's last words has been thought of Yuji as a curse? I think you all know how prominent cursing in death is. It doesn't even have to be malicious, but surprise, surprise, being cursed changes the way someone goes through life. Yuji's grandfather thought he was imparting words of wisdom to his grandson. Geto at the end of it all says, at least curse me a little in the end. And surprisingly, they were one of the few who didn't do it. And Yaga to Gakuganji, where he divulges his curse technique, saying, it's a curse from me to you. Simple end-of-life words imparted on strangers or even loved ones can have an adverse effect of cursing them, even if unintentional. And I would imagine that the words said to loved ones with more emotions behind them are far more powerful. So when you die, you know what to do. Shut the fuck up. So if you've stuck with me for this long, thank you. As a token of appreciation, I'm going to review all of the pieces of this theory before I explain to you the conclusion and the full and final plan because it has been a long video. I took multiple breaks while filming this. 1. Culling Games are a way of breaking in humanity to both create human suffering to create cursed energy for powering the ritual and merging humanity with Tengen. 2. Fate is the force that we should be paying attention to, and Tengen's kinda sus. And 3. Curse techniques are just curses that live in symbiosis with humans who have 2 genetic factors of being able to exist in the symbiosis with the curse and the ability to control it. 4. Familial curse techniques exist because of family members cursing each other. And here we arrive at the end of it. how all of these things that I talked to you for the last whatever amount of minutes have passed will culminate to Kenjaku's final plan. This is the last clue to piece it all together. Sukuna is the bomb that Kenjaku intends to set loose, but not in the way that you think it is. It's not just Sukuna's devastating abilities to level literal city blocks. He can do that now. It is what's really special to him that Kenjaku wants, and that is the pure evil that he holds inside him. More than that, what will happen when that evil is introduced to the population, merged with Tengen, and the effects of this evil spreading rampant amongst all, and I do mean all, people. Let's travel back to chapter 53. This is a chapter that has already been animated, that was at the beginning of Jujutsu Kaisen before we even knew 99% of these things. It really shows the depth of what Akutami Sensei has planned for us and how important all of these small details are. Here is the quote. No, Itadori and Sukuna himself are a bomb to us and to Jujutsu High. We shouldn't set it off until we need the most chaos. Sukuna is the pinnacle of chaos that Kenjaku is hoping for. We have one guarantee. The introduction of Sukuna to the general population will introduce an overwhelming amount of evil into the population. If you recall, the merging of Tengen will disintegrate the barriers between humanity because there would be no boundaries between individuals, so evil would spread instantaneously. But while this is all well and good, or actually the opposite of that, but you get what I mean, what does it even accomplish? Well, the end result is the most terrifying and twisted goal one could have. The result we were enlightened to by Naoya's transformation, Higuruma and Junpei's transformation, and the cursing of the young boys literally in the very first chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen. The end result is the most terrifying and twisted goal one could have. But it's not original. It's the goal that Geto Suguru had. Flooded with evil and thereby cursed energy, there are only two outcomes. The transformation into a curse, or surviving the transformation and housing a curse within and being modified into a full-blown sorcerer. Kenjaku can't eliminate humans out of the equation because of their very important role in perpetuating and creating cursed energy, but he would eliminate every single ordinary human off the face of the planet and leave only sorcerers and the people who have the ability to house cursed spirits but not control them. And this would guarantee two things, two very important things. One is that the human race will go on. Like I said before, the cursed energy generation is a positive feedback loop, but it needs humans to keep going and keep creating cursed energy and creating more curses. And two, this would ensure that those people would turn into curses in death unless they were exorcised. And those that don't survive the ritual as humans will be turned into cursed spirits, thereby thrusting the world into another age of curses. This is the fate that Kenjaku wants for humanity. His name means a rope to save all living things, which is what Yuki says is not a name that he deserves, but this is the answer that he has been looking for this whole time. The answer that was always flickering darkly in the chaos. And while Charles may have had a good quote from Hoshina Sensei, the mangaka of D. Gray Man, I will end it with this one instead. The only species that could get cursed in this world are humans. And that is the ultimate goal of Kenjaku, to curse every human to evolve into something beyond themselves. So he can grab a hold of the dream that he had that was always flickering darkly in the chaos. Thank you for watching.